listening to Season 4, Episode 9 of Vixen, a Black beauty and pop culture podcast. If you enjoy what you hear today, please leave a review anywhere you listen to podcasts. Today's episode is on Connie Fleming, aka Connie Girl, iconic artist, supermodel, door girl, all of the above. Now, let's start the show. Hey y'all, welcome back to a brand new episode of Vixen. I'm very excited to get into today's episode. I know I say that all the time, but this one was on someone that I had heard of, but I really didn't know much about her. So it was really, really interesting to research her life and put this episode together. So I hope y'all enjoy it. Before I get started, I'm just going to give y'all a quick disclaimer. Connie Girl is a trans woman. So of course she will be referred to as she and her throughout this episode. When I am speaking about her childhood and her life before transitioning, I will still be referring to her as she and her. So I just wanted to let y'all know that. And I also will not be sharing her dead name, her birth name, or anything like that. We're just going to refer to her as Connie Fleming, Connie Girl. All right, let's go. In the mid-1970s, 5-year-old Connie Fleming arrived from Jamaica alongside her mother in New York City. Connie's mother was determined to finish her education and create a great life for herself and her child in the big city, away from her child's father, who was a raging alcoholic. The two settled into Flatbush, a very vibrant West Indian neighborhood in Brooklyn, for those who don't know. The pair quickly got started on their new life in America, but Connie's version of this new life in the U.S. did not have a great start. As a feminine trans child in a black neighborhood in the 1970s, y'all already know it was not going to be easy for Connie to assimilate into her new surroundings. In an interview with The Standard in 2017, which was my main source for this episode, by the way, Connie said this of her childhood. As a trans child, it was horrifying. From the first day of first grade to the last day of high school, they hated me. I couldn't have cared less. By 8, the world shows its face to you. How mean, how petty, how violent it can be. End quote. So trigger warning for this part, please skip ahead if you think you might have to. I'm going to be talking about a little bit of violence towards a trans person. At school, Connie received physical and sexual threats from a lot of people, damn near all of her peers, pretty much every day, which is just absolutely horrible. There was one instance that made her feel particularly unsafe. So when she was a freshman in high school, she had an encounter in the locker room with both the football and the basketball team. And this caused her to stop going to the class altogether. And that was her gym class. So life was hard at school for Connie, but her home life was also quite difficult. It was hard for her mother to accept Connie's identity, and the relationship they had started to become strained. Y'all know, as Black folks, we know how homophobia affects our community across the entire diaspora, whether you're West Indian, you're Black American, you're British, you're African, like, we know. Spoiler alert, just on a happier note, I want to let y'all know now, later on, her and her mother do reconcile, and they have a really, really great relationship these days. Just to let y'all know, this does have a happy ending. So I just wanted to throw that in there. But back to this time, just merely existing was rough for Connie, but luckily she found an outlet in art illustration, which she was crazy talented at and still is. Here's a quote from Connie from Interview Magazine in 2020. Art was my saving grace because I could always draw, and it was a point of goodness, a skill that didn't make me a total freak. Remember the incident I mentioned that made Connie stop going to her gym class? So she stopped going throughout her entire high school career, I believe. So she just never went back to gym. And because she had stopped going, she wasn't able to graduate with her class because she was missing gym credits. Now, let me just say this. I hate that gym is required for you to graduate from high school. I think it's ridiculous. I hated gym class throughout my entire education. I understand the health class portion, fine, but why do y'all need me to be fake active? Why would that be a requirement? I just think it's ridiculous. But anyway, One of Connie's art teachers really, really believed in her, and this teacher pushed Connie to expand her art portfolio and get her GED so that she could actually have a career in art. So Connie took the teacher's advice. She pushed through it. She got her GED and she enrolled at FIT, aka the Fashion Institute of Technology. While at FIT, Connie quickly realized that she had to make some money, okay, because she's a college student. So she started working at a vintage boutique called Antique to help support her and to pay for her education. This is where she met David Glamamore, a designer and drag performer who would become one of her best friends, even though they didn't like each other at first. So they weren't really feeling each other, I guess. They just kind of gave each other the silent treatment at work until they both ended up being interested in the same Mr. Blackwell dress at the boutique they worked at. Then they became friends. I mean, that is like a classic New York story. Like, when I lived in New York, I lived there for 6 years. I worked in retail for most of the time. Yeah, actually the entire time I lived in New York. I worked at Urban Outfitters, I worked at Buffalo Exchange, and then I worked at a luxury consignment boutique. And one of the things I miss the most about New York is that everybody just bonds over fashion. Like, even if y'all don't like anything else about each other, if nothing else, people respect people who can turn a look. Here's a condensed quote from Connie about David in that Interview magazine article. There I met David Glamamore. We hated each other at the beginning because, well, when one cat sees another cat. So I paid her no mind and she paid me no mind until one day we both went for the same dress. We both saw the label at the same time. It was a Mr. Blackwell dress, a fashion test, and you have to pass. If you weren't in a full look 24 hours a day, or if anybody saw you out of that look, you were done. You were a poser and a fake. End quote. One night after work, David and Connie went to a club called Boy Bar. David introduced her to Paul McGregor, the club's owner, and Matthew Katzen, who was in charge of hiring all of the talent for the club. The two of them just so happened to be at a table discussing the possibility of bringing shows to Boy Bar, and Matthew and Connie specifically really, really hit it off. They talked all night, and they even walked each other to the train when the night was over. So Matthew was telling Connie all about his show ideas, and she was listening intently, and then he told her, mind you, he did not ask her, that she was going to be in them, and that was final. Connie at the time was a little self-conscious, and she was very nervous about doing any kind of live performance, mainly because she had never performed anywhere before, but it was all history from there. After meeting Matthew, 18-year-old Connie joined the Boy Bar Beauties, a popular drag troupe that traveled around the city performing in legendary nightclubs like The Tunnel, Limelight, Palladium, all the big names, y'all. And I know that I have said either on the show or like in a live show that I wanted to do some kind of episode on just like legendary nightclubs throughout the city that were a part of the Black community and the LGBTQ community. I'm still doing that. I'm working on it right now, and I'll tell y'all a little bit more about it another time, but just know it's coming for those who have asked. Being a part of Boy Bar Beauties, this is when Connie realizes that she's that girl. You know what I mean? This is when she starts to come into herself, realize who she is, and just have confidence in herself. This is also where she gathers the courage and has the community to transition in a safe environment. So, quick story about how she got her iconic nickname. One night, Matthew was announcing Connie to the audience, and he referred to her as Connie Girl, and the name just stuck. Everyone just started calling her that after he announced her that way. In an interview with the Heroines in 2021, Connie said of this time, "The scene at that time had drag looked down upon. It was viewed as the lowest of the low, a nuisance to some, to others a hindrance for the LGBTQ plus community being taken seriously. But this was before social media, so clubs and bars were meeting places, and the village was a community of artists and creators. Performance art and street art grew and thrived. It needed venues for the audience that wanted live, timely, relevant entertainment that spoke to them and not at them." I love that. It was also the time of the plague that devastated the community, taking its toll on the young and old alike. We had to come together as a community in order to survive. There was fundraising to do, information to disseminate, and a sense of joy and hope to give each other. The neighborhood pub, bar, club is a home away from home. It was no different for us. The Pyramid and Boy Bar shared artists and bounced off of each other elevating the art, making it viable and profitable. This made the larger venues like Palladium, Tunnel, and Limelight possible. We brought an audience, a fan base, and energy, more importantly, changing the view of drag being messy and unprofessional to being the art that it is, and hopefully, in some part, pushing it to what it is today. End quote. In no time, Connie was being recognized all over the city, becoming a popular face in the downtown scene. She had opportunities galore, y'all, from working with Keith Haring, Yoko Ono, famous makeup artist Wade Bandy, and many, many others. She had been approached by a lot of fashion designers to model for their lines. Like, she was that girl. Here's another condensed quote from that interview with the heroines. I was very lucky to be in the East Village in the late 80s. It was the hub of fashion, art, music, and club culture. I had to address me, my existence, who and what I was. First, finding one's tribe, I couldn't progress without doing this. My tribe and hope for life was in the creative community of downtown New York, the world of Warhol, CBGBs, and Danceteria, a world far away, a mythic place in magazines and TV, but how to get there. Was there a secret password or special passageway one had to find? End quote. Once Connie started working and performing in the East Village and in other places downtown, she started to think more about her future and started to see herself as more of an overall artist rather than just being a performer. So, like I mentioned earlier, being a part of this community gave Connie a safe space to begin her transition. One night, International Crisis, a famous performer who was one of Salvador Dali's proteges, just like Danielle Luna. Side note, I did an episode on Danielle in season 1. Go listen if you haven't. But anyway, International Crisis was booked one night to perform at Boy Bar. So the two met, and Crisis became a mentor to Connie throughout her transition, as well as through her artistic growth. She gave Connie the book April Ashley's Odyssey by Duncan Followell, which is the memoir of a model who was outed in 1961. Being close to Crisis helped Connie gain the courage to transition herself. So this is a real high point for Connie, y'all. Things start to change rapidly. She's thriving in her career, and she was transitioning into her true self. She started to think a lot more about the future and what she would do outside of drag. So at this point, she decides to give modeling a serious try. So like I said, she had already been approached to pose for different photographers and designers, and I believe she had already done some published work at this time, but her plan was to make high fashion modeling her full-time career, like her main thing. She just didn't see drag performances as something that she could do long-term if she wanted to be taken seriously in the art industry. So, of course, like, present day, that's not true anymore. Like, I definitely believe you can do drag and be taken seriously in the art industry for sure. Absolutely. And probably throughout other industries now too. But remember what Connie was saying earlier about the way that drag was looked down upon even in the LGBTQ plus community. So I think at this time it made sense for her to be like, I don't really want to make this my identity or like something that I'm so directly associated with. I need to kind of branch out from this. So here's a quote from Connie herself about it. If you perform on stage as a trans person, you're a drag queen. You can't really be taken seriously. The line was drawn, and it was drawn by people outside of us. There are only a few employment options available to trans people. You're a whore, or you can be on stage and perform. There's no room in society for us. I was super lucky and thankful that I had drag because it was a safe environment for me to transition. The drag community took a broken child and rebuilt her. They gave me confidence and a voice and lifted my head up off the ground, but I had to solidify myself within, end quote. I love what she said because I don't want y'all to think that she was trying to like distance herself from drag performing in a negative way. It's just she wanted to keep moving her career forward, and she was very talented, so she didn't want to only be stuck doing drag if she had other skills and stuff like that. And as you can see from that quote, like, she speaks very highly of the drag community and she credits them with making her into who she is today. So hopefully y'all understand the picture I'm trying to paint. She just wanted to expand her horizons, y'all. While trying to get her modeling career off the ground, Connie started working at Pat Phil in between gigs. She booked her first runway show shortly after, a holiday show where she could barely see down down the runway because the lights were so bright. She was so nervous that Matthew had to actually push her out onto the stage because she wouldn't go. So at that point, she had Matthew, David, and her hairstylist, Miss Shannon, to help her get ready for gigs. And the four of them kind of became like a team of sorts. I believe they would accompany Connie on shoots and things, and they will also have their own shoots together that they all contributed to. Photographer Stephen Measle happened to see Connie one day at one of Patricia Field's balls, actually, where she was a contestant. He asked around to find out who she was, and the two started working together, taking some of the most iconic photos of Connie. So like a lot of the photos that you see of her like on Tumblr, Pinterest, or Instagram too, he actually took a lot of them. Hey y'all, so I know we're all excited to come out of this pandemic and get back to our regular lives, but let's be honest, we've been through a lot these last 2 years. You might feel like you need to step back, reassess, process it all, set new goals, or just talk to somebody. I was feeling the exact same way, and I just had my very first session with my new life coach, Tola Maria. I ain't gonna lie, y'all, I was nervous, but Tola made the space very comfortable. I felt safe, and I felt like I could be open and honest. Although she made me comfortable, she did not hold back, y'all. She definitely told me about myself. But it all felt really constructive. I got some good tips. It was definitely eye-opening and very much needed. Having a life coach is something that I think Black women can truly get a lot out of. So I've partnered with Tola Maria, life coach, to offer my listeners 12% off their bulk sessions when they use my code VIXEN. You can use this code on her website, which will be linked down in the show notes, and you can find her on Instagram at TMaria Life Coach. That's TMARIA Life Coach. And don't forget to use code VIXEN and let her know that I've sent you. In 1989, at the very first Suzanne Barsh Love Ball, Connie met Teddy Mugler himself. He had already had an idea of who she was because he had seen her perform at the Boy Bar. He had also seen a few of Steven's photos of Connie, and he had heard about her from other people. So the next year, he casted Connie in his winter 89-90 show at Paris Fashion Week, and she got booked in other shows throughout that season. So she appeared in his show first and then appeared in a lot of other ones throughout the week. Nobody outside of the New York City set really knew who Connie was at this time, so nobody knew anything about her background or her past. She said most people assumed that she was just one of like the new African models who had, came out that season. She wasn't. They didn't know. But remember this for later. In 1992, George Michael casted Connie in the video for his song Too Funky alongside Beverly Pill, Tyra Banks, Linda Evangelista is also in this video, and there's a lot of other models in the video, I believe. So George had seen Connie walk in the APLA health show for AIDS, and that is where he got the original idea for like the concept of the video. Here's a quote from Connie about the day they shot the video. My first day on set, George's assistant came and said George wanted to chat with me about a scene. I turned around and there he was. He said how he loved my walk at the APLA benefit show in LA, which sparked the idea for Too Funky, and the collaboration cowgirl look was one of his favorites. I stood there in shock and tongue-tied that he was actually chatting to me. I don't remember actually answering him, but hopefully I did without totally fanning out. He was so gracious and kind and suggested a shot he thought I'd be perfect for. At this point, Connie's popularity was steadily climbing in the fashion world. So she had walked for 5 seasons straight in both Paris Fashion Week and New York Fashion Week, but she wasn't the only one getting shine. That same year, as RuPaul's popularity grew, drag started to become more mainstream, often being incorporated into fashion, especially on the runway. This was great, of course, in the grand scheme of things, but it was kind of unfortunate for Connie because we know she was trying to like distance herself a little bit from drag in a healthy way, not in a bad way, just in a way so that she could be seen as multifaceted and not just as a drag performer. And this is just my opinion, but I also think that she wanted to like make sure she didn't align herself with drag in fashion circles because she thought it might hinder her from certain opportunities just due to other people's mindsets. Connie said, there were people in the business who hated drag and thought it was dishonest. A lot went into it. Self-hatred, homophobia, misogyny. It was always the underbelly of it. So drag was becoming more popular in the fashion world, and against her will, Connie kind of became like the unofficial official face of it, unfortunately. Before one of the shows, Connie walked in Paris, a reporter directly asked Vivienne Westwood if she had, trigger warning, transphobia, a man in her show. Another time, an assistant backstage who didn't want to work with Connie because she was a trans woman egged a reporter on to ask Connie a few transphobic questions during her interview. So in her interview with the heroines, Connie said, "By the time Westwood's Grand Hotel show came along, the trend of drag and fashion had run its course, and I'd been labeled difficult. I hadn't gone along with the narrative of drag and fashion being a cute flirtation with the subversive hidden underbelly of society. I made the mistake of not denying my past and wanting to be truthful about being transgendered," end quote. When the season was over and Connie got back to New York, her agent told her people didn't want to work with her because she seemed difficult, and this was completely baseless. The only reason people thought she was difficult was because she wouldn't answer certain questions, and she kind of showed agency over herself and her life story, and she kept it professional, which is crazy, but y'all already know how people love to paint Black women. At this point, she kind of knew that this was going to be the end of her modeling career, so she decided to leave it on her own terms. She took it on the chin, didn't let it get her down too much, and she crafted a new plan to create a brand new career for herself in fashion production and casting. In that interview with Interview Magazine, Connie had this to say: "At first, I wasn't treated any differently, but with more visibility came pushback. But the game is the game, and you can't hate the game. Aside from my circumstance, ultimately in that world, the slow and weak get eaten. When the trend of drag and fashion came along, I transitioned. I felt healthy and whole for the first time in my life. I wasn't going to be ashamed of my past. I wasn't guilty of any crime and wasn't going to be baited by those who wanted to sensationalize and use their own internalized phobias to further hatred and misinformation. It's fashion. One day you're in, the next you're out. The vitriol that came when the trend ended was expected. I had to take it as it came, with grace and bravery. There are tiny minds everywhere you go. Ultimately, the fashion world is a reflection of society, and it's women, gays, and straight, mostly white men with power. Enough said," end quote. That's period. I see no lies, and I see that reflected across industries. When Connie got back to New York, she fell right back into the swing of things. She started working in production for high-end fashion shows and started working the door at clubs in the city when she wasn't busy with that. Her friend, party promoter Eric Conrad, wanted her to be the face of his new weekly party at the supper club called Poop. Yes, that was really the name of the party, y'all. A lot of people like this party. I think Andy Cohen mentions it a few times in his memoir, one of the books he wrote. But yeah, it was a very popular party, and it was called Poop. In that article with The Standard, Eric said, "I called her the Mona Lisa. She's so gorgeous. You would want to wait in line just for her. I was so fascinated because she can get on stage and do the most shocking performance, but then she's very shy off stage. That's why I put her on the door. That's the show. She takes no hostages. One time I had her do a door at a VIP room and I said, 'Don't let anybody up here. Absolutely nobody.' I think it was a party for Donatella. I had to go up there and she said, 'No, you said nobody.' I go, 'You're kidding.' And she goes, 'That's what you told me.' She's the sweetest, most delicious, toughest, softest cookie." As you can probably tell from Connie not letting her own boss in, Connie did not take no shit at the door, y'all. Everybody knew that it was going to be quite the challenge to get in the door if Connie Girl was at it. She quickly got a reputation as the evil bitch at the door, the meanest girl in town, all of that. Have y'all ever been to a club with a door girl that was not so nice? That's why I like when men be at the door, because it's easier to finesse men. But anyway, in all seriousness, Connie didn't take her job lightly because she knew that people who came out would probably not take her seriously because of who she was. Connie says that she was tough at the door, but always fair, even when dealing with drunk people. She says that she could tell people couldn't handle a trans woman, a Black one at that, telling them no. So she developed that armor of an attitude to protect herself. She said, "At the beginning, it wasn't cool to have trans people at the door. It was like the kiss of death. Trans people were considered thieves, drug dealers, hookers. No one thought they had to respect a Black trans woman. I had to develop a persona, someone who was no nonsense and demanded respect. Throughout the years, Connie has continued to work in the art and fashion worlds, namely in production, modeling, illustration, wardrobe, and she still performs from time to time, I believe. In 2012, Connie was on the cover of the 5th issue of Candy magazine, dressed as Michelle Obama. I like this cover, posted on my Instagram. Around 2015, Connie had a health scare when she started to experience complications from breast implants that she had gotten back in 2000. She had an itchy sensation in her lower right breast like before 2015, but she just always thought it was just her being irritated from wearing bras. All of a sudden, that itchiness came back in full force that year, so I'm assuming it was really, really unbearable. While scratching it, Connie felt a lump and she went straight in for a mammogram. She was diagnosed with an advanced case of a rare cancer caused by the implants called anaplastic large cell lymphoma. Luckily, in 2018, doctors were able to remove Connie's implants and take out the surrounding scar tissue and cancerous cells. Post-surgery, she underwent chemotherapy and radiation, and then in July 2019, she got a test showing that she was cancer-free. Thank God, praise him. And that's just amazing. Like, I'm so glad that this part of the story has a happy ending. The whole thing does, spoiler alert, but I'm really glad that this cancer scare ended up just being a scare. This woman survived being a Black trans woman in the 80s and the 90s, and then she proceeded to fuck cancer up. Like, just a bad bitch. That's bad bitch shit. So anyway, let's flash forward to present day. So Connie still works in all of the things. She's still sickening. To this day, she is really, honestly, like, she is absolutely stunning, even still. Her life seems a little bit more quiet now. The New Yorker once called her impossible to book. But these days, she coaches high fashion models on how to work the runway. In 2020, she hosted a fundraiser for the Black trans community at Gitano Garden of Love alongside its owner, James Gardner. She even created an original mural for the event, which was gorgeous. In 2021, she served as a judge on the board for the Illuminations Grant for Black trans women visual artists. And what that is it's a $10,000 grant for Black trans women and femmes who are visual artists. Love that. I'm going to end this episode on something Connie said in an interview with Days Digital in 2019. When it comes to beauty, Connie expresses a similar opinion to Lamar. She defines it as something beyond what is understood as a purely physical idea or ideal. Beauty is relative, fleeting, and transcendent. It defies place and time and makes no excuses for its existence, only asking to be reflected truthfully to the soul. End quote. All right, y'all. So that is the story of Connie Girl. So like I said earlier, I loved doing the research for this episode. So I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Y'all have been asking me for more episodes on the high fashion doll. So I figured Connie would be a great one to focus on. If y'all have any other submissions or people that you want me to focus on, you know, you can always DM me at the Vixen Memoirs on Instagram or email vixenpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to know more about Connie, there's a really good podcast that I found. I believe it's called Never Alone. I will find it, link to it, and put it in my show notes below. Connie was on this podcast twice, actually. She was once on being interviewed by the host, and then she comes back and she interviews Tracy Africa Norman, who is another Black trans supermodel who was very, very popular in the 70s and 80s. I believe she was in an ad, like a hair ad. I think it was a Clairol. Is it Clairol? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Clairol. I listened to that one where she interviews Tracy, and it was really, really good. So I'll make sure I link it below, and y'all can find the one where Connie is interviewed by herself as well. So yeah, I'll make sure I post the links for y'all. And insanely enough, this season is basically over, y'all. I cannot believe it. It feels like the Zola episode came out like 2 weeks ago. I mean, y'all, time is flying. I know people say that all the time, but I feel like we can all collectively agree that this summer has flown. Like, I cannot believe that we're about to be in the fall, and I am pretty much done with the 4th season of this show. I mean, that's crazy. I'm definitely not ready to say goodbye to y'all for the season, but I am excited to give you the film review finale episode, which I'll see y'all back here next week for. Y'all better be here. Okay. Bye. Thank you for listening to Vixen. If you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a review. If you have a submission, feel free to email VIXENPODCAST@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with an all new episode.